From a businessman's perspective, GSP Plus is obviously going to hurt the exports in our country. What is your stance on losing out the GSP?
Of course, there is a negative impact of losing GSP Plus. As you very correctly said at the beginning, still we are talking the political angle of it, not the real impact of it. And truly, I have never heard a businessman or serious exporter is talking about it. That may be because that there are a lot of other issues in the country because of the current health crisis that we are facing. But give a very direct answer, it will definitely have an impact for an exporter in a country like Sri Lanka, because a country like Sri Lanka, an export of our country, we have to get whatever the positives, you have to secure whatever the positives we have, because compare with some of the other exporters, we don't have for certain products we don't have an cost or cost advantages. There are so much of disadvantages as well. So if you are enjoying any positives or any concessions, I think it is very important to secure them. If we are thinking of an export drive, an export growth in next few years, and also on top of everything, growth of export revenue will be critical to solve most of the economic issues that we are currently facing, including the current COVID situation, and also to address the severe foreign currency rate fluctuations.
Which brings me, yes, Mr. Wijeyarathne, now brings me to my next question as well. Now, we are definitely in a problem in that department, and as it was discussed in Parliament, importers have a problem where they can't open letters of credit because the government is not allowing a dollar outflow. But the mechanism of how we have an inflow is through people involved in the export sector. That is one main source of getting our dollars into the country. But on the flip side, the government has not yet, any government, not the current government, not the former governments, provided necessary concessions required for the exporters to be encouraged to export. Because we see a situation where the government, everyone in the country says export, 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 but they are also not given any sort of encouragement, maybe through a tax concession. That is not happening. So is it really practical to hope for the exporters to miraculously, start the business and with all of these taxes that are being paid to also go forward and multiply and maximize their business? Is that in your opinion practical?
No, it's anyway when it comes to export revenue of our country, we have to understand number of exporters registered with EDB. If you get the numbers, it is very less, right? Compared to total number of businesses registered, that number is extremely low percentage in Sri Lanka compared to any country in the region. So current export revenue is also coming from very few, because the mentality of Sri Lankan businessmen, even people who are production oriented, running production oriented businesses, is to cater into the Sri Lankan market. We don't have an export mentality in this country. So because of that, number of exporters are less, right? At the same time, there are various trade agreements, concessionary schemes such as GSP Plus, but we have not seen the full utilization of them. So that is also a major issue which we need to address. So as you correctly said, to solve most of the economic issues that we currently have, it is very important to see a growth of exports. because inflow of foreign currency to the country has been severely hit. As you said, we can't expect people who are working abroad to send money here, because we know the situation. We do not need to elaborate more that people who are working abroad are losing their jobs. They start coming into Sri Lanka. It is very unlikely with the present situation in the world that there will be more new job opportunities for them, or for Sri Lankans to be created in other countries as well. So we have to depend on export revenue. So we have to think of a very solid policy framework which is not going to change for some time. Because what is important, as I said, why there is very less number of exporters in this country. Number one, that as I said, the export mentality is not there. That is not in their blood, right? And number two, they don't trust the system. They don't have confidence. So the policies and incentives, concessions giving for exports, the businessman should feel that these are stable for some time. So they will invest.
Right.
They will invest money, they will invest their energy, they will focus on it. Without having those things, I don't think increasing or see a growth in exports will only be a miracle.
Mr. Wijeyarathne, another angle to this is, as you said, if the objective of the businesses are not looking at exports, then there is a problem with regard to awareness. How the sort of the people who are involved in the export business, are they properly educated on these matters, especially like what is available through GSP, like concessions that they have that they can tap into, resources that they can use to maximize. Are they aware of things that are happening in the export sector?
One biggest issue is the awareness issue. As I said at the beginning, even when it comes to GSP plus, there is a quota for Sri Lanka, and it has not been utilized 100%, right? And also, if you take there are various trade agreements with other countries, and if you ask from an average, not even an average, even a businessman who is doing a very decent business, are you aware about the list of products that you can export to India with zero duty? I don't think that you will get a fair answer by many. So that level of awareness is extremely low. So authorities who are responsible to create this awareness has to work very aggressively if we need to see a growth in exports. So at the same time, it's not that they don't like to export, because the purpose of a businessman and main objective is to increase their profitability. So export will definitely have a positive impact on achieving that objective. But the issue is, as I said earlier, it's not in their system. We don't have a natural motivation or a drive inside the business owners to go for exports. One reason, they think it's a risky thing to do, because if you sell something to a local or if you are catering it to the local market, you are in a known territory. So your access to that territory, the people, your customers, is easy. But when you export, it's another geographical area. Sri Lankan businessmen, not only Sri Lankan businessmen, normally Sri Lankans are there is a resistance to take risk. We don't like to take risk as a country. So without taking because if you need a high return, you have to take a considerably higher risk as well. So they feel that export there's some risk involved. So because of that, the confidence levels are less. So that's why I said there are two things. One, the authorities who are responsible to create this create these confidence levels and the awareness levels increase among the exporters and potential exporters, they have to work very aggressively. At the same time, I think even there is a responsibility for the businessman also to think differently, because it's a fact that because of this current economic situation created because of the health crisis, will have loads of limitation. It will limit the buying power of their consumers in Sri Lanka, if you focus only on Sri Lanka. So if you need to maintain your revenue streams and if you need to see a growth, there's no other option other than going for another territory. So you have to expand your market. So if you are selling only to one geographical area, you may have to go island wide. If you are catering to the whole country, you may have to go out of the country. So those are inevitable if you need to see a growth. So now you complete turnaround, 180-degree change of all these negatives that I have mentioned is required if you need to see a growth.
With that, Mr. Wijeyarathne, let's quickly cross over to a commercial break to watch the headlines of the Primetime News Bulletin, and we'll be back.
Newsfirst Newsline.
ජන බලවේගය protests in parliament demanding a fuel price reduction. Re-engage with the IMF, says Ranil Wickremesinghe after swearing in as a member of parliament. State Minister of Prison Management recommends to the President to release 17 suspected LTTE cadres. The Pfizer vaccine to be administered as the second dose of AstraZeneca. The stock of vaccines to arrive in the island in the next month.
Newsfirst Newsline.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsline. We are in discussion with Mr. Wijeyarathne about the GSP situation in the country, especially about the problems that the exporters face. Mr. Wijeyarathne, I want to ask you this question as well. Now, we spoke about the awareness factor when we discussed about the GSP matter. Now, for example, the chamber that you represent, the Colombo Chamber of Commerce, do you think the members of your chamber are aware of the, as I said, the provisions that are available to them, maybe to expand? Do you think, as the President, are you able to get them that exposure in terms of how to export?
Yes, as a chamber, that there are so much of programs that we do to create that awareness, and as a chamber that we take now during last few months it was restricted, but we do a lot of trade delegations to other countries. So and also since as since we have lot of links with other chambers in other countries, so if there is a requirement of any of our members to find a counterpart,
How many members do you have, Mr. Wijeyarathne?
we have about 4,000 members
in the Colombo Chamber
Yeah.
of Commerce. Okay.
So if they want to get a counterpart in another country, the most credible way of finding it through the chamber in that country.
Okay.
So there are a lot of active chambers. So there are ways that we help, but it's only we are helping to a very small number of people. But out of our membership, all are not exporters too.
How many are, like, as a percentage, if you look at
I
it, how
think
many?
about 30% are done some sort of export.
But not major scale exporters to a certain degree.
Yeah, certain, because anyway Colombo Chamber is catering, our mandate is basically to facilitate a small and medium sector,
Right.
because it has been not focused by most of the chambers in the country.
Right.
So our focus is more into SME sector. But promoting SME sector exporters is also very important. But the problem, but it is very unlikely that we can solve this issue, because we cater into a very small segment of the market. So business chambers, business associations, they can do their part.
Yeah.
But there are, as I said, there are a lot of other authorities, institutions, government organizations are there to create this awareness. So there are so much of trade agreements, there are so much of concessions, and also when it comes to exports, it is very important to do a planning. Right? Just because your neighbor is doing well with one product, it never means that you can produce the same and send it out. So there has to be a plan. That information flow, the information flow to potential investors, potential exporters is less. At the same time, the planning, I can see that there are some lot of improvements are required.
Mr. Wijeyarathne, let's talk to citizen Wijeyarathne now. As a citizen of this country, we know that there is a problem economically, and this has been a problem that has been there for a long time. It's not sort of the result of one political group. It is not that. It has been an ongoing problem. But the fact that we are stopping imports into the country at the moment, and we are also to a certain way depending on things like the GSP without any diversification, is that practical? The current economic plan that is in the country, let's not focus on the political situation. The current economic plan in the country, do you think it works for Sri Lanka?
You mean you are specifically asking about stop imports
and ask the country to export without importing?
No, it's like this. Anyway, this health related issue is not only for us, it's a global issue. And even last year the global economy also has shown a negative growth. Same for Sri Lanka. So we are a part of a problem, and that we have to understand first.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you when you are in a global, when you are a part of a global crisis, there are certain short-term measures that you have to take. So this curtailing imports is one of short-term strategies that you have to do. That it's a must. It's a must. No one can say that this is something bad, but it will not deliver desired results in medium term if it is not managed well. But what is most important is, as a country, to encourage people to do import substitutes. So whatever import to this country is imported to this country because there is a market for it, right? So for certain things we import, we can't even imagine the amount that we spend. For example, okay, let's take we import $300 million worth of medicine to the country. That you can't stop that. Yeah, of course you have to. okay, let's take electronic items, your phones, whatever, TVs. So about 150 million worth of things are imported. But if I say $180 million worth of furniture are imported to the country, that is even higher than the import expenditure on most of the things that we consume on daily basis.
Right. Okay.
Right. It's more than what spend on most of these stuff. Right? So, but why these imports are there? Because there is a market for it.
Right.
So, what exactly should happen? Curtailing imports as a short-term strategy, we have to agree. But is there an adequate attempt made in the country to make sure that import substitutes are produced in the country? If not, it's not going to work. It will only add into the frustration of the citizen, which will have a lot of negatives, because it will have an impact on their motivation to work, everything. It will have a lot of negatives. So what we basically need to do is to have that import substitutions, give incentives to do that. As soon as this issue is, because you can't, certain goods that you say no now, but you can't do it forever. You can't do it for months and months and years.
Yeah.
You have to stop it.
Yeah.
So that's the only way out. You have to make sure these import substitutes are manufactured in Sri Lanka, and necessary policy decisions and required incentives are given for these people who are willing to do it.
Mr. Wijeyarathne, quick answer because of the time matter. A senior business personality is saying that your import numbers that you mentioned are not correct. Are you saying that as an example, or are those accurate numbers?
Which import?
The import numbers that you just mentioned in terms of the they're accurate.
Very accurate.
Right.
Very accurate.
With that, we have to thank Mr. Wijeyarathne for being a part of the show this evening. As Mr. Wijeyarathne mentioned, a lot of exporters have not shown their interest to be a part of the show and talk about the GSP plus concession. We do not know the reason, but Mr. Wijeyarathne was able to accept our invitation to come on the show as well. So thank you, Mr. Wijeyarathne, once again for being a part of the show. You can watch this show on YouTube. Hashtag Newsline SL is what you have to search for when you search for this show, and of course all our Newsline program. So I urge you to stay tuned to News First and watch the prime time English news bulletin that follows as well. I've been Saranga Wijeyarathne. Thank you.
News First, Newsline.
නායකත්ව කවුන්සිලය ඉදිරිපත් කළ ගම්මැද්ද V-Force Leadership Series සම්මන්ත්‍රණ මාලාවට සහභාගී වූ දහස් සංඛ්‍යාත තරුණ ප්‍රජාවට සහ ඔවුන්ට මඟ පෙන්වා හෙට දවසේ අලුත් නායකයින් ලෙස ගොඩනැගෙන්නට වෙරදුන් අද දවසේ නායකත්වයට අපගේ උත්තමාචාරය.
The Gammadda V-Force Leadership Series.
නොනැවතී ඉදිරියට.
මේ කාමරේ ඔයාට මොන වගේ?
හැඟුම්බර නම් සෙනෙහවන්ත නම් ආදරණීය නම් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කොයි තැන වුණත් ඒක පේනම තැනක් වෙනවමයි නේද?
ඕනෑම ගැහැණියෙක් දරුවෙක් ප්‍රසූත කරන්නට පීතෘත්ව තිබිය යුතුමයි. ඒතකොට ඒක අවජාතක වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
රියදුරු වෘත්තිය කාන්තාවකට නුසුදුසුයි කියලා
බස් එකක් කරා යනවා දැකලා නැහැනේ.
හරියට ඩ්‍රයිව් කරන්න බෑ
අන්න
යවන්න දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක ඇත්තද?
බැරි දෙයක් නැහැ කාන්තාවන්ට.
මගේ දැසම පේන්නේ නැහැ අවුරුදු 20ක් තිස්සේ. එහෙම කොහොමද S2ක් පෙනීම නැතුව කෙනෙක් ගනුදෙනු කරන්නේ හා සාර්ථක වන්නේ?
කාන්තාවක් නිකරුණේ ගණිකාවක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. කාන්තාවන්ව හොයාගෙන යන පිරිමින්ව කවුද අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්නේ?
මට කියන්න බෑනේ කොණ්ඩේ කපලවාට පිරිමියෙක් වෙනවා කියලා. මේක අපේ රටට සංස්කෘතියට ගැලපෙන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ඔයාට ඒක දැනෙන්නේ නැත්නම් ඔයාට ඒක අවශ්‍යතාවය නැත්නම් මට ඔව කොල්ලෙක් කරන්න බෑ.
පිරිමි ගණිකාවක් ඉන්නවා අපේ රටේ.